after the tip is much easier.
Hey, we're back to the NFL now, where more rookies are set to report to camps today for the Falcons, Ravens, Chiefs, and Commanders. Along with the rookies are injured guys and quarterbacks. So we'll start with some quarterbacks. We'll start in Baltimore. Hawk, will Lamar Jackson thrive right away under new head coach Jesse Minter?
I think he will. Look, comfort is peaceful, but things seldomly grow there. So I think the change of scenery for a new coach, for Lamar Jackson, will invigorate the team, and I think we'll see the Lamar Jackson of old.
Over in the NFC, Kevin Clark, will Jaden Daniels recapture his rookie form this season?
To quote the great philosopher Andrew Hawkins, comfort is peaceful, but things very rarely grow there. I talked to Dan Quinn himself about Jaden Daniels and the new under-center offense that he thinks is going to be able to build explosive plays off of, because you're going to be able to run play action. That'll stress the defense a lot more. I am buying all the 2024 Jaden Daniels stock I can find right now.
We know who's playing quarterback in Washington. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback in Atlanta. They have a quarterback competition. Tim Hasselbeck, who should be QB1 for the Falcons this season, Michael Penix or Tua Tagovailoa?
Michael Penix, as soon as he's healthy, and look, that might be the start of the season, it may not be, but Atlanta is not going to build around Tua. They need to figure out if they can trust building around Penix. The history of injury is an issue. They need to see if he can play well, and they need to see if he can play healthy, and that's why, quite frankly, you need to start him.
We'll see if Tua changes anything for him. I've been told comfort is peaceful. Finally, Hawk, will the Chiefs be back in the playoffs if Patrick Mahomes is back healthy this season?
It depends on how comfortable he can get back there, Graz. Listen, when I think of Patrick Mahomes, and regardless of where he's at, I'm not going to say that, 70% of him is better than every other quarterback. No, but this is far and away the best quarterback we've had of our generation. And if he is healthy for 17 games in that lineup, being himself, I do think that they get back to the Super Bowl. Not only because of that, the addition of Eric Bieniemy back there and then Kenneth Walker in the run game, there should be a definite increase there that helps take some of the pressure off of Patrick Mahomes. I question whether or not they can get to Super Bowl caliber.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're in that tough division. Denver won 14 last year, and the Chargers finished ahead of them. So there's a lot of other teams that have kind of passed them in the AFC. When Mahomes was, before he was hurt, the Chiefs were even then still having trouble being an explosive offense. Do you think they can get back to that?
No, and it breaks my heart as just a football fan who loved watching that tape and seeing those screen grabs and Mahomes in danger, and all of a sudden he rattles off a 40-yard pass. That hasn't been Mahomes in a couple of years now. Last year, he only completed a third of his deep passes. Last year on throws over 20 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. To me, that's a stat that encompasses everything. The offensive line, the receiver, Xavier Worthy, who was supposed to be that deep threat, simply has not hit in the way that we thought. There hasn't been that downfield chemistry like there was with Tyreek Hill, or even a prime Travis Kelce who was able to find holes in zone down the field. It is not the same offense as it was a few years ago, and that's my biggest concern. They are no longer the most explosive offense in football.
So, Tim, if that's the case, and that's where we are in Patrick Mahomes' career, what do you need to see from him and the Chiefs to convince you they can keep their run going throughout his career?
Well, I think if they're going to keep their run going, they won't look like the team, as Kevin's alluded to, is that insanely explosive offense. Like, they just won't, and quite frankly, they haven't been in recent years either. If they're going to, be a postseason team and make noise, it's going to be because they're really good on defense and they're good on offense, not the explosive, kind of high-flying team that we saw, years ago. Look, when they had Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, and there's all of this speed, and everybody was scared to death of it, and there was so much stuff down the field. People were scared to death of it. Look, this is the receiver room. So a couple of familiar faces in Kansas City, they're back. Kansas City's basically saying, these are the guys, which I think is really interesting considering they've been in the veteran wide receiver market in past years, basically as an acknowledgement of not totally sure that we feel great about this room. And so now compound that with, look, Patrick Mahomes is coming off of a late season ACL injury. That's just been one of the more surprising things this offseason. And so I think when you look at that, basically what Kansas City is saying, look, we're going to coach these guys better than we have in past years. And that seems risky.
Well, that's really interesting because they did change offensive coordinators. You mentioned Eric Bieniemy. They also changed out 3 or 4 assistants on the offensive side of the ball, and then they keep that same wide receiver room. I feel almost like they're telling us we like our players. We just need to coach them better or coach them differently. Do you think that's the kind of thing that can make a difference there?
I absolutely do. I think as we've watched the Kansas City Chiefs over the last few years and their lack of execution, that comes with a coaching consistency and a standard that I think Eric Bieniemy does bring to that offensive side of the ball. And I think even from a receiver standpoint, when you look back at 2023, which was probably one of their biggest down years for the receivers, I think they led the league in drops.
Yeah.
And they were Super Bowl champions, right? And so I think that this receiving core is at the very least better than that receiving core. And if Patrick Mahomes could be healthy and with Eric Bieniemy back in the lineup, I think they could be good.
If Patrick Mahomes can be healthy is probably the biggest if hanging over the NFL offseason as we get training camps underway. Going to talk a little breeding. It is a football Friday, and we have lots to get to this morning. I got Hawk here. I got Kevin Clark here. Tim Hasselbeck is here to talk some football. We have many more on the way, but things are picking up already in the NFL, where the Patriots and Seahawks veterans report to camp today, looking to start another journey back to the Super Bowl. Let's start in New England. Hawk, with A.J. Brown in the fold, having acquired him from the Eagles, is New England the team to beat in the AFC?
As much as I love A.J. Brown being in the lineup for Drake May to utilize, I actually think the Buffalo Bills are still the team to beat in that division. They added DJ Moore, which might not feel as sexy as the A.J. Brown addition, but what it does is it right-sizes their offense and gives Josh Allen legitimate threats all over the field.
I'm sure DJ Moore thinks he's just as sexy as A.J. Brown, but we're talking about the Patriots, not the Bills. What do you think, Kevin Clark, of this A.J. Brown addition and what it'll mean in terms of New England's chances to get back to the Super Bowl?
A.J. Brown is the move that the Patriots had to make, so all respect to them, but it's going to be a very different AFC this year. Much improved rosters in Denver with Jalen Waddle. By the way, I think one of the reasons Sean Payton made that move is he realized how wide open the AFC is. New coaches in places like Baltimore, which I think will help. Cincinnati with their health and their moves on the defensive end. It's just going to be a very different conference. Even the Chargers, I think, will be in the mix this year. I don't think they're going to get the breaks they got last year. Give me another team.
Tim, how do you feel, like specifically, we heard about this A.J. Brown trade all off season long. Now that he's there, how do you feel he's going to help take Drake May's game to another level?
Well, Drake May's never played with a receiver like A.J. Brown, and so I think that ends up being the key. You know, Brown is unique in that, you know, the size, physicality, and speed, catch radius, those types of things can make it easy for a quarterback. You know, you get, isolated coverage. Look, that's a green light right there. And what happens is it can often kind of take the read out of a play because you know where you're going with the football, and then you don't have to be perfect because the guy doesn't have to create a ton of separation in order to complete a pass to him. So I think that almost like the dictating of coverage that big physical elite receivers can do, I think Brown does that, and I think that makes life significantly easier for any quarterback, especially one as talented as Drake May.
Is he still that guy? I mean, when you look at the rest of the wide receivers in the NFL, where do you put A.J. Brown ranking-wise at this point?
He's absolutely top 5 most talented wide receivers in the league. Yeah. And when you even look at like how we talked about A.J. Brown over the last few years in Philadelphia was because as good as they have been and as much as he brought to that offense, he was still underachieving for what his talent level is. When you remember, like over the last few decades, the prototypical receiver is that 6'2 plus, 220 pound plus receiver. Go look at the ESPN top 10 list. There's only 2 of those guys, Nico Collins and A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown is the best of that version of NFL wide receiver.
What are you looking at for this Patriots? I mean, they're upgraded at receiver, him and Romeo Doubs, by the way, who they also signed in free agency. But it was the offensive line that kind of did them in at the end last year. Are they better there?
Will Campbell allowed more pressures in the Super Bowl than any player in a playoff game in the last 7 years. That stat is bad. You don't have to be an analytics expert to know how bad that stat is. But he's healthy again this year. Hopefully, obviously, he's got the short arms. Maybe they'll be able to coach him differently. There's still problems there. The answer is I don't know. I had to see it with the offensive line up front. A.J. Brown is going to help. That defense is going to help. They obviously still need better production edge rushers, but their interior pressure was awesome last year. Milt Williams was one of the best players in football last year. I think they're going to be okay, but again, the AFC is just so wide open. I don't know how they fit in there.
Yeah, Tim, where do you put this Patriots group? I mean, do Do you expect them to repeat as division champions, let alone conference champions?
Yeah. I don't think I do, Dan. Look, I think that. Look, I think they can be a better team, kind of to the guy's point. I think they can be maybe a better team than they were a year ago. I think Drake May can play a little bit better, and they, not achieve the things that they achieved as a team last year. And then, some of that will be schedule related. Some of that will just be the rest of the conference related. So, no, I don't think with some of their concerns, just in terms of, a bit of, kind of getting to the Super Bowl type hangover that can happen to teams. So, look, I think the Bills end up winning the AFC East. I don't think New England, ends up back in the AFC Championship game. But it doesn't necessarily mean I don't think they make progress as a team, because I think they do, but I don't think those things happen.
You got Bills or Patriots or someone else in the
Jets.
AFC
No, I'm
East?
kidding. The Bills. Give me the Bills. Again, the Patriots, all respect to them. Drake May, one of the best players